A chaotic battle ensues between a group of ecliptic mercenaries and bandits known as Spacers on a Nova Galactic star station nearby the moon of Earth. We spacefarers rush into the foray with a mouthful of chunks, stifling our battle cry and kill every single last individual. In the resulting silence, we can find a data slate on one of the Spacers labeled Secret Outpost, which sparks our interest in its contents. In this lore video, we'll be exploring the stories and journey of a superhero-like vigilante called the Mantis that has proudly settled systems for over the past 100 years. There will be spoilers, and if you haven't checked out my other lore videos, definitely consider doing so. Big thank you to those who watch one of my videos 100,000 times. You're all amazing, and if you ever want to talk lore with me, you can do so in the comments below. And be sure to check out my partners, StarfieldWiki.net, run by the team behind UESP. The data slate reads as follows. Loyal to your crew. I get it, but screw that. Beg, borrow, steal, kill to get to Denebola 1B. There is a secret outpost we're trying to crack. Once in a lifetime opportunity. You'll regret it for the rest of your life if you don't get your ass over here. We grab jump to Denebola 1B, located in the Denebola star system, which is outside of both United Colonies and Free Star Collective Space. We touch down on the surprisingly temperate moon that orbits the planet of Denebola, and we arrive to find even more spacers on patrol, guarding what we assume is the aforementioned secret outpost. After we kill the outside guards and proceed to descend into the complex, we overhear the Spacers talk about the Mantis and how in disbelief they are finding slates and messages from the Mantis all over the place. It's clear from their conversation that the Spacers are, or rather were, afraid of the Mantis, or were in awe of the Mantis at the very least, with recounting of famous Spacers being killed by the Mantis. We interrupt their conversation, and we find a voice recording left by a Doriane Voclaine, addressed to someone called Leon.
You're doing well, Leon. Almost there. I know. Things have been difficult. The mantle of the Mantis is a heavy burden, but you can do so much good. The Spacers and pirates need someone to fear, someone to check them. To make them realize some lines cannot be crossed. You have it in you, Leon. I know you do. Stay sharp, focused, just a little further.
When we pick up another voice recording involuntarily from a Spacer, we discover that the Leon referred to in the first message was the son of Doriane Voclaine.
So I met with a lawyer and was prepared to party. Hard. The video will was emotional. Mom and I stopped talking years ago. Mom didn't look good, but it was Mom. As weird, crazy, and cryptic as ever. I'm almost surprised she remembered she even had a son. It was hard to hear. Almost touching. But then the punchline. No inheritance until I go to Mom's secret base on Denebola 1B. And she ends not with an I love you or an I'm proud of you. No. Sic semper tyrannis. My god. Always with that stupid Latin saying. Over and over she'd say that damn thing. Thanks, Mom. Thanks oh so much.
Leon can be heard on another voice recording where he discovers that his mother, with whom he had an estranged relationship with, was a spacefaring vigilante known as the Mantis.
The Mantis? No way. I mean, the Mantis is a fairy tale. Someone to keep pirates from going off the deep end. I guess it's possible. She never talked about where she got her fortune. And man, she could handle herself anywhere. It's a lot to take in.
We come upon what looks to be the largest room eventually, and after we kill all the Spacers shooting at us, we see that the last Spacer alive has been cowering during the entire firefight. Approaching him, we learn that his name is Livy, and it turns out that the spacers were stuck at this point in the complex due to the number of traps ahead that they hadn't been able to figure out. Before we make our final judgment call on Livy as a potential asset, if we had picked up another slate earlier labeled the Gold Mine, we can read, "This layer is a gold mine. The Mantis was loaded, the salvage top notch, and the good stuff's gotta be further in. The payout's going to be extreme, just gotta survive until then. Traps took out Carver and Zhang. Livy volunteered a couple of others from IronDave's crew. Poor bastards. Just gotta stay off Livy's radar. Doesn't seem that Livy is as weak nor cooperative as he's trying to convince us he is. We learned that Livy had essentially sacrificed his own crewmates, forcing them to die in attempts to figure out these traps. Despite his pleas, we kill Livy as we can't possibly trust him to be at our backs. Had he given the same choice of mercy to his own fellow spacers? The only good spacer is a dead spacer, after all. If we had also picked up another slate from another spacer earlier, it reads, "Found Leon's body. Looks like one of the damn traps got him too. Big fight over his body until IronDave broke it up. Managed to grab his cred stick though, so bonus. Gotta wonder if the Mantis' own son got nixed. How can we do any better?" It's clear at this point the spacers were led by an individual called IronDave, with Livy as a potential lieutenant or second in command of the spacers' attempts to crack the lair of the Mantis. We don't know if the body of IronDave is among the several dozen spacer corpses we've left in our trail, but it doesn't matter, as the last thing remaining between us and the inner sanctum of the Mantis lair were deadly autonomous traps. Nearby, we can actually find the body of Doriane Voclaine, the now deceased son of Doriane, the Mantis.
Turrets. Mom, why the hell? This whole thing is a sick joke. Gotta get out. Oh God.
Tragically, it seems that despite his mother wanting Leon to follow in her footsteps, he was killed by the lair's turrets, which he must have triggered by accident, assuming he had disarmed or avoided the earlier traps. There's a series of square sensor pads with white letters painted onto each of them in the next room. Should we try to circumvent this puzzle entirely, the turrets try to mow us down. We could also take out the turrets from afar, but surely we're more intelligent than some random spacers. We recall that Leon complained that his mother always repeated the Latin phrase, Sic semper tyrannis, which means, thus always to tyrants. The phrase has a long history, allegedly dating back to when Brutus proclaimed it after stabbing Julius Caesar. Most notoriously, the phrase is associated with John Wilkes Booth's assassination of US President Lincoln when he yelled it out after assassinating him, and being on the t-shirt of Timothy McVeigh when he was arrested after the Oklahoma City bombing in the late 20th century. We figure out that the number of squares corresponds to a number of letters in Tyrannus, and that turns out to be the code for bypassing the turret trap. We eventually run into more defenses, including hostile automatons, but we dispatch these with ease. We stumble upon the actual lair of the Mantis with a sleek starship positioned on top of a submersible docking platform. Doriane's final voice recording plays as we look around.
Leon, you've done it. This lair belongs to be the Mantis, my darling boy. I haven't been the best mother in these final days. I wish. Be a better Mantis. Be a better person than I was.
The base seems to have been fashioned out of the natural cave formation under the surface of Denebola 1B. Computers, terminals, robots, and data centers adorn the hideout with gadgets and weapons strewn about. Navigational consoles, lockers, and other amenities, including a living quarters, indicate a large amount of credits being invested into the construction of the Mantis lair. We access a nearby security terminal, and it seems that the computer systems tried to purge all the data from the Mantis lair once the base detected explosions that may have occurred as a result of the spacers breaching into the lair, initiating a defense contingency plan called Scorched Earth. From the archive security log, it seems that Doriane Voclaine unassigned the administrator role from herself, leaving that privilege open for Leon or potentially whoever else that came along. Thankfully, not everything was deleted as the program was interrupted. In the living quarters of the Mantis, we find several transcripts on another computer that gives us a bit more lore for the Mantis. In a message from the Mantis that preceded Doriane, it reads, "You've earned it. Doriane, you must have thought I was crazy, but now you see, right? Of all the people I could have chosen, I know you will fill the role of the Mantis the best. In these computers, you'll find a history of the Mantis. What the Mantis is today, it wasn't always the case. When reading the logs about the first Mantis, don't judge her too harshly. It was a volatile time, and before she passed the mantle, she recognized that the mantle could be more than an opportunity to make money. It could be a symbol. Make the settled systems safer. Strike fear into the heart of those that believe that they are above the law, above reproach. But most importantly, keep the secrets safe. Now, I'm off to retirement. Don't try to contact me. You won't be able to find me. I left you all you need here. Signed, the former Mantis." If we are to assume the mantle of the Mantis has been around for over 100 years since the early 23rd century, the volatile time of Doriane's preceding Mantis is referring to the time period after the Nerian War, the first major galactic conflict that started in the year 2196 up until 2216. No doubt, just as we discussed in the lore surrounding the Colony War, the post-Nerian War period was incredibly destabilizing, probably leading to a rise in cutthroat criminal activities. And since the incredibly violent Serpent's Crusade occurred only 24 years after the end of the Nerian War, it wouldn't have been surprising that violence was just accepted as part of everyday life in the settled systems, allowing figures such as the Mantis to be born. Because it seems that the first Mantis, whoever she was out for herself primarily to make a fortune off during this tumultuous time period, it's also made apparent that her successor, whether it was the second, third, or fourth Mantis that preceded Doriane Voclaine, was only made possible by this morally dubious-made fortune. What's interesting here is that the former Mantis chose Doriane, and we can assume the succession traditionally works like this. It's unclear if they were a family member, but it's highly unlikely as the former Mantis chose Doriane for her qualities rather than blood relations. What makes someone fit for the vigilante job of the Mantis is unknown, but based on the estranged relationship between Doriane and Leon, it seems the ability to keep secrets and to be able to keep personal feelings out of the way in this violent life might be qualifications. We read another uncorrupted or undestroyed file, this time written by Doriane, which reads,
"First kill. I've been forced to take lives before, but this was the first time I did so as the Mantis. It felt different. I was scared. More about letting everyone down than the fight itself. At one point, the Mantis's ship, the Razorleaf, was light years above everyone else, and she still flies well and true. But it's clear I need to upgrade pretty much everything inside it. The hull's what matters, though. That's the symbol. But, in the end, I got the better of Redoreer. I imagine there will be celebrations in the streets of Aquila City. Total scum. But I can't shake the feeling that tracker work is at its heart murder for pay. I'm not sure why the old Mantis chose me, but pretty much every Mantis has said that. Signed, DV."
Again, we have a reference to the other Mantises and their footsteps in which Doriane cautiously followed. We also have Doriane ruminating on the upgrades needed to tackle on the spacers and the bad guys of the settled systems, but clearly being restricted to a degree due to the appearance of the Mantis ship called the Razorleaf needing to be recognizable. It's unfortunate that the Scorched Earth program took out most of the data, as we would have loved to pour over the experiences of the other Mantis before Doriane and perhaps figure out their own motivations and stories. In the last log, we can read,
"About Leon. I've been going through the motions of living, fighting, and carrying on, but all I can think of is, you have a year to live, Dory. It plays over and over in my head. I can still smell the office, see the sad, flat eyes of the doctor. Details come to me at the oddest times. It puts everything in stark relief. What's important, what's not. The most important thing is choosing the right successor. And I just know Leon could do it. I have failed him so much, The job always seems so pressing. If I'm brutally honest with myself, the nannies and the boarding schools raised him more than I. But there is greatness in him. If only he could see it. I'm going to talk with my lawyer first thing when I get in system. The wheels need to be set in motion. I'm having a good day today. I feel so normal. But I'm walking through the world like it's a cloud.
In perhaps her weakest moment as the Mantis, but perhaps the best yet also misguided moment as a mother, Doriane tragically chose Leon to take up the mantle of the Mantis out of love. It's clear that Doriane was wealthy, and instead of giving Leon opportunities to choose his own path in life, she wanted to essentially force her life's work upon him with the odd instructions of him following her guidance to the base full of traps. Granted, she just may not have had the best clarity of thought in her last days, evident by the blood on the bathroom and living space floor, but the fact remains her son now lies dead in the lair of the Mantis alongside the spacers we had to kill who had discovered the secrets of the Mantis. Yes, she did try to train him when he was younger.
Sorry I could never show this lair to you. The lair is a secret that's been passed down for over 100 years. And there are rules. You remember when you were a teenager? All the training, the drills, all of it was to prepare you for this. I know you have it in you, Leon.
But it's clear that it wasn't enough. She had a rather warped view of motherhood if she didn't even bother meeting her son in person to even give the courtesy of letting Leon know that she was dying. Doriane's decision also speaks to the loneliness of this brutal vigilante life in the fact that she didn't seem to know anyone else besides her party-loving estranged son to take up the work of the Mantis. It's also an unfortunate aspect of the continued existence of the Mantis that speaks to the current instability of the Zealot systems even 100 years after the first Mantis took up arms. It's clear that the United Colonies, nor the Freestar Collective, are able to safeguard their territories or citizens against spacers, Crimson Fleet pirates, and other space bandits. We can inspect and also take the sleek armor of the Mantis, which is of a legendary tier, should we wish to. We can also finish our work in the now defunct and discovered lair of the Mantis by activating the lift for the Razorleaf starship. When we take a little ship tour, the interior of the Razorleaf boasts an armory with little room for other amenities that we see on other ships. It's clear the Razorleaf is meant for one thing and one thing only: combat. Notably, it also has a shielded cargo container for contraband, which implies the iterations of the Mantis had to get involved in the smuggling of contraband items to perform their missions, or perhaps turn a profit to continue their vigilantism. When we commandeer the Razorleaf and take it into the settled systems, we officially take up the mantle of the Mantis and become the Mantis, a force and symbol for justice. Spacers will often recognize us as the Mantis when they see the Razorleaf begging us to let them go, as we strike fear into their hearts with just our appearance. And when we rescue civilians and do get recognized as the Mantis, we get the following dialogue, also implying the Mantis is known as a magnanimous figure to those we rescue.
I thought we were dead, but those spacers were terrified. I can't believe it. We were saved by the Mantis. Everybody keeps going on about this Mantis. Who the hell is the Mantis? Okay. I can't believe it. You're just like how I imagined you. So is it customary to give the Mantis some sort of reward? The Mantis never takes a reward. Bless you, sir. Ma'am. I can't believe we were rescued by you. Wait, so this is free? You both gotta be pulling my leg here. Happily. Take this, Mantis. So damn classy. You're my hero, Mantis. Well then, thank you, Mantis. Ship's repaired. We'll be heading out.
Strangely, when we appear in the Mantis spacesuit in front of others, even spacers don't recognize us as the Mantis, which lets us know that most of the Mantis activity seems to have been in starship combat, or witnesses never really saw the Mantis for too long. Or perhaps there were no witnesses left to see the Mantis in their entirety. Although it's indisputable that, at least in terms of pop culture within the Starfield universe, the Mantis is well known when you talk to other NPCs. While I would have loved to find more lore on the Mantis through environmental storytelling or other mediums, this will all have to do for now. I hope you enjoyed this little Starfield lore video. This is going to be my last one for a couple of weeks as I am moving across the states from Pennsylvania to Texas for a little while. Thank you all for your support this past month. It's been an awesome journey thus far with those of you from mine and the Starfield community. Please stay safe, have fun, and I'll see you all out there in the Starfield.